Math. Why does that cause so much anxiety for so many people? I find that many homeschool moms in particular feel like math is that tricky subject where they don't enjoy it themselves, or they're not sure, what if their child doesn't get it? How do you teach it? What's the best curriculum? What's the easiest curriculum to teach? I have a comparison for you today between Singapore math, Saxon math, and teaching textbooks. They have similarities, they have a lot of differences. Which one is the best, and which one is right for you? Welcome to this channel where we share our plans for our home, our plans for our homeschool, and hopefully those plans coincide with his, because his are going to win every time. My name is Rachel, and I am a homeschooling mom to 3 kids, aged 7 through 13, almost 14. And we've been homeschooling since 2015. So math. I'm just going to get right into it. If you don't know the difference between mastery and spiral, you need to understand this approach because it's going to come up as you're choosing curriculum. So a mastery approach means they're going to teach a concept and you are going to do problems that are going to really drill down that concept until it's mastered. A spiral approach, because they teach a concept and you'll do a little bit of practice for that concept, and then it's going to spiral backwards and review all the previous concepts, and then you'll go forward again, learn a new concept, do a little bit of practice for that concept, and then spiral back and review. So it's constantly reviewing. Singapore is a mastery approach. The spiral approach is Saxon, and teaching textbooks is also a spiral approach. So as I'm going through these curriculums, keep that in mind. Singapore is mastery, and they do have a little bit of review. They do have, I wouldn't call it a little bit of spiral, but they do have review in there. So at the end of a unit, they have practice problems that do review, and they do have periodic reviews in there that do review everything. But the spiral approach math curriculums, they're reviewing every single lesson. We started with Singapore math because that is what my father's world had suggested. Now, what's the big deal about Singapore math? Okay, well, this goes to Singapore, the country. Where does the United States tend to rank worldwide in math? Not very high. Where does Singapore, the country, rank in math? At the top. So Singapore math, how the curriculum is put together, is based on the principles and the concepts of how Singapore, the country, teaches their children math concepts. And it is different than how the United States does. So I have experience with Singapore from the kindergarten level all the way through the Singapore 5B. Now Singapore only goes through 6B. Each of their numbered levels, so 6, for example, has an A and a B. I guess kind of to give you an idea what could be one semester versus the next semester. The books are very, very thin. You can get a textbook and a workbook combined for one semester for $25. So the books are, I think they're roughly $12.50. Don't quote me on that, but definitely below $15 for each book. So for the year, it's around $50. Not counting the math manipulatives, but math manipulatives, in my opinion, you can buy the fancy manipulatives or you can just get buttons, right? You can make your own manipulatives, but manipulatives are for the hands. The idea behind Singapore is it's teaching the children to think mathematically. So it's not just teaching them to memorize certain math formulas or concepts or whatever. It's teaching them how to think through a problem, not just what to think, which is kind of what I tend to go towards also in any curriculum that I'm going to choose. Singapore teaches all of their lessons based on 3 ways of teaching it. They teach the lesson through a concrete example, a pictorial example, and then an abstract example. So what do I mean by that? The concrete example would be the manipulative. So here is a physical example of this math concept we're going to go through. The pictorial example would be a picture of the math concept. So, like if you're adding 2 plus 3, here's 2 beans, here's 3 beans, and so that the child at younger ages can physically count them through a picture. And then the abstract would be the actual numbers, 2 plus 3, because that's an abstract concept. The symbol 2,
sorry, I'm writing backwards. The symbol 2,
it doesn't really mean anything to some children. It's abstract. Juliana, what problem are we working on?
18 plus 5. Wait.
18 plus 5.
18 plus 5.
All right, show me how we do it.
So, what we do, so we only need 2 to make another 10.
So you're starting with 10 plus 8, so 18, and you're going to borrow from
the 5s.
the 5 so that you can do what?
Make another 10.
Make another 10.
So, 23.
Yay! Good job! The curriculum uses lots of number bonds, so the relationship numbers have with each other. So for example, if you watched my homeschool supplies video, one of the supplies that I mentioned in there were these flashcards that were triangular shaped. And that's because what I call them is number families. They are addition cards. It would have, or actually I shouldn't say that, because they are addition or subtraction cards, because they are a family. You would have 5 at the top of your triangle and 2 and 3, or maybe it would say 5 and 4 and 1. So the triangle, because those numbers are all related in a family, if you have the 4 plus the 1, you know the answer is 5. If it's 5 minus 4, you know the answer is 1. And so it's teaching the child to think through those relationships, teaching them to think broader on how to solve a problem. A quick look inside this textbook, you'll see these pictorial examples in the 10s and the 1s, teaching the child the relationship between those categories. The abstract problem is at the bottom each time, and then over here is the number bond that I just spoke about, all in one lesson. One more thing that I want to mention about the Singapore math, and I learned this from other homeschool moms as I was just starting out, was Singapore math. Typically, if you are not mathematically inclined as a parent, this curriculum might frustrate you because, as I said, it's not like completely foreign, but it's different from how we were taught math. But if you are mathematically inclined, you might really enjoy this curriculum. Saxon is maybe a little bit less challenging in that way. It teaches towards standardized tests. The students that use the Saxon program typically do very, very well on standardized tests, including, up to the ACT or the SAT, to those types of things. I really don't know the stats on Singapore because Singapore math does not go into the high school, whereas Saxon does. My experience with Saxon is also kindergarten through 2nd grade, and then now my son is using Saxon 8-7 this year. Before we homeschooled, my son went to a Christian school that used Saxon, and it was fine for us for the first few years, but then whenever he would bring home homework, my husband and I were always really frustrated because we were always like, what is he learning? This stuff looks the same. It looks like we're constantly doing the same worksheet over and over and over again. So for my husband and I, who again are mathematically inclined, this was so boring for us. I also wonder if your child is mathematically inclined, if this would be boring for them. If they are ready to move on to a new concept and they've mastered it, going back and constantly doing review. Now, But if you have a child who struggles with math concepts, that constant review, I could definitely see how that would be beneficial. And that is why I switched to it this year for my son, because I thought maybe we should go back to that constant review, the spiral approach. Part of their workbook, they also have math drills, which is especially important in the younger years to really drill those math facts. Now, do you need it on paper? You can use mathhelp.com. There's also mathworksheets.com, where you can also print out those sorts of drill sheets. And then also I will talk about an app that we use that also drills it here in a bit. So what is the cost of Saxon math? Saxon is the most expensive of these three. I think, again, without manipulatives, because I think kindergarten through third grade may offer physical manipulatives that you could use. Just the books themselves, I think $80 for a year. And then if you get online help like I did for my son, oh my goodness, I don't even remember what I paid for that online help. It couldn't have been more than $50 though, because I just can't imagine myself paying that much more. But it's definitely the most expensive of these three programs. Let me throw in here, this is definitely one of the downsides to the Singapore math, is that I could not find any online instructor or tutor or anything online that utilized the Singapore. If it's out there and you know about it, leave me a comment below, because if you can't tell, I actually really do like Singapore. But I also like having the online help for my student, because I just have a lot of math people in my family. So I have sent my children to them to explain something in a different way, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know how else to explain this. So the online help and having somebody else be able to explain it, I think can be very helpful. So I definitely love the online help. And that is also the reason why we switched to teaching textbooks. So teaching textbooks, also a spiral approach, also has an online instructor. Now the difference between the online help that I got from Saxon math versus the teaching textbooks math, Saxon I still have to grade everything myself. So it's time consuming. Saxon, I'm having to not only grade it, but if there wasn't a good grade, then I am the one that's reteaching it and going over it again with my child, which is fine. Teaching textbooks, they grade it, they keep track of the grades, and there is additional review that you could do. One thing that I just recently discovered as my daughter was taking me through it, because we're still fairly new with teaching textbooks, so I can't say yes or no on teaching textbooks yet. It's kind of still up in the air for us. But they do have extra practice. So I told my daughter if she gets, for example, below an 80% on one lesson, then we're going to go to the teaching textbooks e-book, it's called, and you can print out a worksheet. My daughter loves this because there's like a little avatar, that like a kitty cat that she loves, that dresses up if she gets it right. She can change her wallpaper, so she can have fun, creative fun in that way, and she's all about the creative fun.
Creative fun. My daughter's all about the fun.
So that part is cool for her. And she also likes the instant feedback on whether or not she got something right. What's the problem?
Finish the multiplication sequence for the numbers 12 by filling in the blanks.
So skip count the 12s. Here comes CC memory work.
12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, 108, 120, 132, 144.
Yep.
And now she's ready for baseball.
Now she's ready for bed. Also with the teaching textbooks, because it's very interactive, unlike the Saxon online math is an instructor teaching you, and then you go do the work, but there's not really interaction. I think he's just sitting there listening to a lesson and then taking his own notes.
0 times goes into 10 3 times. And another 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times, and you probably already know that that's a repeating decimal there. And so we can just write 0.3 with 3 as
the teaching textbooks will ask a problem, and then she's inputting the answer, and it says if you got it wrong or not. There's also hints, so if she's not quite sure or she doesn't remember, there's a hint that'll help her along. And so it's just a little bit different. The teaching textbooks cost, I think, was less than $50 for the year. So very economical. It's all online. They recently just upgraded where you can even just download it to your computer, so you don't even have to be online. So, your internet's down, you can still do your math. And you don't have to worry about the streaming and all of that. And you don't have to worry about the physical CDs. What have I heard about teaching textbooks from other homeschool moms? Well, I've heard that it's not super strong. I've heard it's not as strong as Saxon, and I've heard it's not as strong as Singapore. What does that mean? I'm not really sure, but here is my experience with all three, and you can draw whatever conclusion you need to draw from this. I personally believe that Singapore Math is the strongest program of the three. Like I mentioned, Saxon is good for the students who want to do well on taking tests and do well on the standardized tests. Singapore is really teaching you how to think through various things. And the teaching textbooks, I've heard, is not as strong, but if your child isn't going to go into a technical field, you don't see them doing something where they need strong math skills, then I wouldn't worry about it, because like I said, my daughter is loving it right now. Just to give you an idea, Singapore. My daughter, before switching her to teaching textbooks, she had just finished Singapore level 4A. This is the other thing I forgot to mention about Singapore. Many people say and agree that it is ahead of most programs. So when it says 4A, it really means 5th grade math. If it says 5A, it's really 6th grade math. So that would mean Singapore only goes up through 6B, so that would be 7th grade math. I don't know, but here's what I do know. My daughter had just finished Singapore 4A when we decided to switch to teaching textbooks. So technically she had 4B to still do. And she tested into teaching textbooks 5, which is the 5th grade curriculum. Singapore 4A completion translated to teaching textbooks 5. My son, when we switched him from Singapore this year to Saxon, he had just completed Singapore 5B. And he tested into Saxon 8-7. So, and also you should know this, if you do have a junior higher, Saxon 8-7 and Algebra 1/2, I've heard, are basically the same curriculums, but Algebra 1/2 concentrates a little bit more on algebraic concepts. But if you need a little bit more help on other concepts, go with the Saxon 8-7. But you can go from Saxon 8-7 to Saxon Algebra 1. So just a little tidbit in there if you have a junior higher. So again, my son went from Singapore 5B to Saxon 8-7. My little one, who has started with Singapore from the beginning, she is the only one who started Singapore Math in kindergarten. She's halfway through her 1st grade year, and she is getting ready to, actually she just started Singapore 2A. So we did Singapore Essentials A and B, and we did Singapore 1A and 1B. She's getting ready to start 2A. Now think back when I said people say Singapore Math is a year ahead. That means my 1st grader, halfway through her year, is getting ready to start 3rd grade math. What is my conclusion from all of this? I don't know which one of these is better. Like I said, I think Singapore is fantastic if you have a mathematically inclined child. My little one clearly has math skills. Every child is made different. Some are more towards the logical side of the spectrum, and some are more towards the creative and the communication and the reading spectrum. All three of my children are very different. One of my children is not as great in math, but excellent in the creative writing and the grammar portion. And then my little one, she's very mathematically inclined, but maybe not as far ahead in her reading as some of my other children were at her age. So children learn at different levels. So Xtra Math is an app, but can also be on the computer. It's timed, as you can see down here on the bottom. It's kind of letting her know she's doing it fast if she could do it before the smiley face. And if she takes too long, it'll give her a little hint.
A big hint.
A big hint. But this is great for timed tests, and it keeps track, and it sends the parent. Yep, so there's the hint. But it teaches her every time. She's a fast one though.
Is that a hint though?
Well, it teaches you 5 + 2 is 7. So she's done, and it's showing all of her progress. She's mastered all the ones in green.
So,
the yellow ones she still has trouble with, but she didn't really have trouble with that 5 + 2. She just...
Yeah, the ones with the little X on them is what I got wrong.
Yep. So now you're going to go in and practice the problems where maybe she wasn't as quick at with a few others, and it's going to show you which problems they're going to focus on here. It wants to keep track of how many smiley faces, which is how many you get right in a row without messing up. So that's a big deal if she gets a lot right in a row. That's more like it. 32 in a row. Now you're done for the day.
Yeah,
why does it say continue again?
Wait, what?
Hit continue again. Oh, then you sign out.
There you go. You are done.
The teacher says bye.
And sign out. And then,
it shows
this
you.
is my school. Wait, what?
Yes, this shows you.
It used to be 94, by the way. This is how much
Progress
I'm
over
here.
time, fluency matrix. Rewind it. Up here it tells you how often they've done it, so we didn't do much in December or November really, so we need to get back in that habit again. So yeah, and this is your progress. So close. So we need to move to multiplication soon. So like I said, this is also an app, so my children love to practice this on the iPad or on our iPhones. It's very convenient, and the little ones always need more practice on their math drills.
19.
Wow. That's the most smileys you got in a row. Do you like this Xtra Math app?
Yes.
Does it make practicing your math facts fun?
Yes. And now
I hope I have given you enough information so that you can assess your child and which one of these programs might work for you. If this video was helpful, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.